What's going on, everyone? That's right, you all asked for it. Armor or chest piece tier list. This is the last one of the list for 1.6.1 as of recording this video, which I'm sure we will return to, assuming they'll add a new weapon or armor or whatever, or maybe they just change the state of the game, and so some of these armors or pieces of gear change in the future. So if you want to check those other videos out, subscribe down below. I got all of them on the channel, so if you want to see the other tier list, that's where they are. But we got armor today, and we got 5 armor pieces, 3 non-S, 2 S pieces of armor. And honestly, this is probably the most polarizing of them all. To me, there are like clear winners and clear losers, so I am going to keep all the tiers on here just to show you what I really think about each option on the list. With that said, let's dive straight into it. Talking about the tiers real quick here. So as a reminder, I factor in the banners when talking about S rank pieces of gear, mainly because the banners are really important for progression and where you're getting your gear. So some pieces of gear, in this case, there's 2. So one piece of gear might be better than the other in terms of progression and ease of getting access to. The non-S ranks are weaker in general in terms of stats, but they do have the option of being way more accessible. So with that said, let's dive into our first one in the Tunic. So the Tunic here is actually really, really solid. The Tunic's bonus, all rare bonuses, by the way, for the non-S pieces of gear are going to give you global HP plus 10%, which is not bad. Okay, nice little HP bonus. It is what it is. It's weaker than the S rank ones, but you know, don't mind that. The Tunic, though, the epic bonus is going to give you global attack plus 10% at the end of each action, max 3 stacks. The legendary bonus is going to be stacks plus 2, and the mythic bonus is going to give you global attack plus 15% after each action. So just to give you an example here, you can get a massive 5 stacks of 15% attack, which equals 75% attack bonus. That is absolutely amazing for a non-S rank piece of gear. That is really, really good. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting it is it S tier? No, I want to differentiate just a little bit. I'm going to put it in the A tier. This doesn't really provide you any pushing power when you're getting to the late game, because you're not going to have the sustain, which is something that's really, really nice to have in your armor, or the revival, which we'll talk about in a later portion of this video. But that nice attack boost is going to be extremely relevant for certain pieces of content that really you can push your attack to the next level. And you can argue that it is an S tier. I would be totally okay with that. I think that the Tunic is something that I wished that I would have invested in immediately. If you guys have watched some of my latest videos or some of the videos I put out, you would note that I'm on an epic chess piece right now, and I merged a lot of my other chess pieces, including the Tunic. But I would have loved to have a legendary plus 3 Tunic, or even, you know, maybe a mythic Tunic at this moment. I think it's actually totally reasonable to bring this up to mythic and then sit on it for a while, because it's going to give you big value because of the massive amount of attack that you're getting. It's a really nice non-S rank piece of gear to be investing in. Next up, we've got the hard armor. This one, same 10% HP bonus. The epic bonus is going to give you at under 30% HP for the first time. You reduce damage taken by 30% for just 1 round. For the legendary bonus, it's going to give you an extra round. And for the mythic bonus, it's going to give you 15% damage reduction. So the 50% damage reduction is honestly not too bad at all. I'm not like, okay, this is absolutely atrocious. But to me, the overall bonuses, the extra under 30% HP for a little bit of damage reduction, only for a single round or in 2 rounds in this case, isn't going to be enough for you to really survive. So that's not really going to give you a big bonus. The damage reduction can be helpful when you are not lacking damage, but you need a little bit of damage reduction. But are you going to invest into 2 separate pieces of armor just to get the damage reduction? Probably not. To me, this is like a C tier piece of gear. I really don't think this is all that fantastic to be investing into, because the bonuses aren't enough to warrant you really wanting that hard armor to go to Mythic, comparatively to the Tunic, which is going to offer a massive damage increase. The damage reduction isn't quite as impressive as some other options that we have on this list. And for our final non-S rank piece of gear, we have the Silverscale Plate. This one's going to give the epic bonus of counter rate plus 3% when attacked, up to 4 stacks. And then the legendary bonus is going to give you plus 2% for chance of counterattack for each stack. And the mythic bonus is going to give you extra 2 stacks. So let's say you get to the mythic bonus, you're going to get plus 5% counter rate for each stack, up to 6 stacks, which gives you a total of 30% counter rate. This is atrocious. Talk about the value in the early to mid game. This is like nothing, no value whatsoever. The progression build that I would suggest people going with doesn't fit this strategy at all. And at best, at absolute best, this is +1 combo count, which is actually pretty good. But like, that's what a counterattack is, but you're only getting 30% of that. So you're not even getting a full combo attack. And that's if you bring it up to mythic. And is that going to outpace the extra damage that you're going to get from the Tunic? Absolutely not. So even if you are a build that functions with counter rate, usually just having the Tunic or one of the other armor pieces is just going to be working better for you. So it's not even like really providing you anything, because there's another non-S rank piece of gear that does what what its bonus is trying to do for the builds that it's trying to do it for better. If you're looking for counter attack for damage, if you're looking at counter attacks and you're trying to synergize the whole build and get some extra survivability off of it, you should just go for a different piece of armor entirely. So Silverscale, this is just to me a D tier. Like, I would almost never invest in it. Like, I would just never invest into it, period. And that brings us to the S rank pieces of gear. Now, this is a pretty quick video because we got 5 pieces of gear and only 2 of them are actual S rank pieces of gear, which means that there are really 2 options in terms of banners that they're on. One of them is going to include Bloody Grail and the other one is not. That's going to give some big advantage over to that piece of gear that's on the Bloody Grail banner because of how important that truly is. Not only that, but the Bloody Grail banner also has the Judgment Ring. And guess which one that is? Because there's only 2 of them. Well, you're going to know the other one by default. It's the Dragon's Breath armor. Dragon's Breath armor. To me, Dragon's Breath armor is actually better than the Revival Cloak. And I'm going to talk about them together here because since there are just 2 of them, you really have to compare them against each other because there's only 2 available S rank pieces of gear. I'm also going to compare it to the Tunic because they do offer different things than the Tunic does, which is why the Tunic is in A tier. So the Dragon's Breath armor, this bonus is going to give you a sustain effect. It's great in epic bonus, similar to the Revival Cloak, is going to give you 10% global HP and 25% global HP respectively. The Dragon's Breath armor's rare bonus is going to restore 25% attack as HP each round. Legendary is going to give you 40% attack as HP, and mythic bonus is at 40%, under 40% HP for the first time. Instantly restore HP equal to 100% of attack. So the idea behind this is every single round you're getting a sustain effect. This is absolutely massive for progression. And there are a lot of situations where you will lose just extra energy that you could have had or, extra value because you're getting longer into these rounds and you don't have any sustain. You didn't pick up the right skills or whatnot, or you didn't get access to the right skills, and the Dragon Breath armor comes in absolute clutch. But arguably the more important factor for the Dragon's Breath armor is the fact that it's on the Bloody Grail banner. That's the big one. That's the big one. Yeah, I mean, that's really what puts it over the Revival Cloak, in my opinion. That's what really does some good work. Now, the Revival Cloak in the very late game is actually going to do better than the Dragon's Breath armor. So this is the advantage that Revival Cape has, and it's why it's in S tier as well. So the rare bonus is just going to give you Revive with 20% HP after death, effective only once. The legendary bonus is going to give you Revive with 50% HP, and the mythic bonus is going to give, after Revival, increase your attack and defense for 25% for 3 rounds. So when you get to the late game, and this is really the only thing that the Revival Cloak offers, you get one shot. And when you get one shot, the sustain from Dragon's Breath armor does zip, does absolutely nothing because you're getting one shot. If you're getting one shot, how do you want to avoid that? You revive. Woo, crazy stuff, guys. It's crazy stuff. But yes, you revive from the revival cloak. Good stuff. That's going to give you a little bit of extra pushing power in those very, 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 very late stages of the game. I want to talk about Tunic and come back to Tunic here and just, talk about this one a little bit more, because what you'll notice about the Dragon's Breath armor and the revival cloak is they're really about survivability. The Dragon's Breath armor is going to give you sustain. The revival's cloak is going to give you that revive. The Tunic is the one that's going to ramp your damage more than any other armor piece in the game. So you could definitely argue that this should be S tier as well. And honestly, I lean towards that direction as well. But because I view the Tunic just a good amount weaker in terms of progression outside of the very early game than the Dragon's Breath armor, because you should be summoning on that banner anyways, so you should be getting quite a few Dragon's Breath armor to keep pace with how many pieces of gear you're getting, I put the Tunic in A tier. But there are situations where the Tunic is worth investing into for the damage increase. And when you're very late game, there are situations where you just want the higher damage, and the Tunic will come into play pretty nicely. That's something to consider. So just because the pushing power isn't quite as high as the Dragon's Breath armor, but it does offer something a little bit more unique with armor pieces in general, I gotta put Tunic in A tier. But I don't think it's quite as good as the Dragon Breath armor or the Revival Cloak. But I would not fault anyone for bringing this up into S tier. I think that's a totally reasonable argument. It's just the way I view progression, and as someone who's a low spender and free to play, that's maybe partial of my bias. But investing into an armor piece that, well, yes, it's fantastic and is going to give you that attack bonus, it's going to get outshone by the Dragon's Breath armor. And because you're summoning on this banner anyways, you should be getting enough to level up the Dragon's Breath armor, especially since you don't have 2 rings or 2 accessories that you have to upgrade. You're going to be able to put all your resources into the Dragon's Breath armor, so you should be able to get it nice and upgraded when you get all those pieces of gear. So I think that's going to be a nice one. But I again, there is a path. Like I said earlier, I would have loved to have the Tunic up to Legendary. And I think that would have been a totally reasonable thing to do. And then you could always just kind of revert it and refund some of the Legendary options. But pushing the Tunic up very, very early on to Legendary and then getting that bonus, or even to Mythic in some cases, if you get unlucky with the Dragon's Breath armor, is a totally viable strategy. So it's something to think about. If you get unlucky with pulling, and I say unlucky because if you're unlucky with pulling Dragon's Breath armor, you're probably lucky pulling Bloody Grails, Judgment Rings, or your weapon that you're using. But you could also, be trying to pull Angel Bow and get a bunch of Shadow Lances or whatever. That's kind of unlucky. So yes, there are chances that the Dragon's Breath armor is unlucky and it's not as good as progression, but ideally the Dragon's Breath armor is what you're going to want to be using until very late game, when the Revival Cloak, or in some cases the Tunic, is going to give you a little bit of bonus there. So again, this is totally reasonable. This is totally reasonable in my eyes. I don't think these 2 armor pieces are in the category or in the conversation whatsoever. So I think armor actually might be one of the more dynamic options, despite being very, very low, because you only have 1 piece of armor that you can equip. Unlike the rings or accessory where it's like Icy Bubble and the Bloody Grail are both S tier, I run 1 of each. Great. Or in the ring category, I'm like, oh, I'm playing a rogue build, or I'm playing something with the Durian Hammer. I want Judgment Ring and I want Dragon Ball Ring. Like, great. I got 2 slots for that. Perfect. They don't stack all that effectively. So it's just something to think about. But that is the armor tier list, guys. It was pretty straight to the point, I would imagine here. There's a very little armor, and well, there are 2, in my opinion, crap armor pieces. So it's like 1 non-S rank one that's optional, and then there's 2 S rank ones that are options, and that's all you got. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Let me know if you would swap around these rankings. I think these 3, again, are very, very close in terms of the effectiveness, that you could really change any of these around, and I think there's an argument for it. I really do. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow for another video.